I have super successful friends who make 7 figures, but they see their kids literally like once a week. The US-China race, so like it's very in your face. Private insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield, $4,000 a month, and she has to wait 12 hours in the ER. One of the hardest things was trying to have local friends. The only flip side is not being rooted, being a global homeless.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Our guest today has lived across continents and carries a story shaped by many cultures. Let's dive straight into her journey. If you or someone you know would like to share your story, especially one connected to China, please contact us. Let's go. Hello, Tara.
Hey guys. Hi, Vivian. Welcome.
Hello.
I wanted to talk about the minimalism sort of philosophy. I also have a lot of books, but they're in Tehran.
So books, the only thing.
Books I have a sentimental attachment to, even though technically I actually read digital books and audiobooks, which don't take up any physical space. The point is, I moved across the world, literally after 8 years in Abu Dhabi with 2 suitcases. That was our luggage allowance, and 2 carry-ons. Me and Layli, so a 1-year-old child at that time. But I will say, in this 1 year, we've been buying too much stuff, and I think it's Taobao consumerism. So
welcome to China.
I was born in Tehran in Iran. Then we moved to Spain, Mallorca, which is an island in the Balearic Islands, for 2 years. And then we got our green cards and moved to the US, to California. So I went to primary school in California. Then at the ripe age of 12, I moved back to Tehran. My parents are both US citizens, but they decided to go back for work. And so I went to middle and high school there. I got my diploma in Iran. Then I went back to the US, to Boston for undergrad, and then transferred to UCLA, got my BA in literature, then came back to Washington DC, again to Boston, master's degree, education policy at Harvard, then went to Abu Dhabi. So UAE was my 3rd country. And 8 years in Abu Dhabi, and then back to Washington DC. So Michael, my husband, worked for the World Bank, so we moved back for his job. And then Beijing. But in between, we spent a lot of time in Germany, where my husband's from. So I'm kind of semi-resident, or I'm very familiar with German culture and lifestyle. And then I worked for a UK company, so I would travel to London a lot. And again, I didn't live there, but working for a company that really exposes you to the culture of that sort of.
Okay, so among the 6 different countries,
yes,
which one you think changed you the most, and why?
It's really interesting because there are also different life stages. And I really think that right now, my favorite has been China. I don't know if it's the time of life of being here in my 40s.
Is it because it surprised you? So different than you expected before?
Different, but also very familiar. This is what I love about China. It's so strange. It actually ties together a lot of my experiences, because some things of it remind me of Iran, because Iran got a lot of influence from China and some of the cultural things, which I think goes back to, the Silk Road. And there's really a lot of shared customs, during Spring Festival, during Mid-Autumn Festival, lots of cultural similarities. So then there's the Dubai style factor of transformation, of radical transformation, where living in the UAE, I experienced seeing this in one generation, or maybe 2 generations, in the 40 years, basically. It transformed completely. But that was on a very small scale of a city-state,
right?
Like Singapore. China is on a huge scale. But that difference of transformation is something that I lived with in UAE as part of the culture of innovation and transformation. And then the America part is kind of like the race. The US-China race. So it's very in your face, this race. So I know all of it is just a perfect storm. But maybe that's because I'm just in the present moment now.
What are the key differences between living in China and the US?
Wow.
Yeah.
So actually, I would preface this by saying not only China and US, but specifically Washington DC, the capital of the United States, and Beijing, capital of China.
Yeah,
I've always lived in capital cities. Even in UAE, everybody says Dubai, but I lived in Abu Dhabi, right? So first of all, DC compared to Beijing feels like a village in terms of size and scale, right? Especially in DC, you've lived there. We're talking about Northwest DC. 200,000 people is the population of Northwest DC, and Beijing is 22 million. A few more zeros. And then the just day-to-day life, I feel like they're actually not that dissimilar in some senses, and that's what feels more familiar than what I expected. I expected to come to planet China, like totally different. But so many of the things culturally in terms of modern living are similar. Like, for example, parenting. Parenting of how it's become a very competitive super parenting.
In DC?
Yeah. In DC, people kill themselves to go get into the right schools, like private schools, like Sidwell. They really agonize over school choice. Again, DC is a bubble, right? It's like this very elite sort of bubble.
Right.
But Beijing, I'm also comparing to a certain part of Beijing, right?
So what is your perspectives on like Juan culture?
Do you
know Juan?
No.
It's like a high competition, high competitive culture, a high competitive environment. Like as a parent.
Yes. So I've experienced it as a parent rather than a professional, because my professional life has always been very laid back. I've worked in development sector and public sector, which is not so competitive. I just feel like it's this expectations of high achievement for the kids, where it's more hands-on, the parenting. Like I remember in my generation, like kids were just sort of, you know, of course there was some intervention by parents to put you in classes and after school activity. But right now it's very intensive. And the things that I expect from my daughter are just 10x compared to my own childhood.
But the US and Chinese education systems are so different though.
Again, I'm speaking about a very selective part of DC who pay $50,000 for a private school
and you think
tuition.
It's the
but
same?
Not for public schools. Like totally different game there. Totally different. Because actually I come from an education sector background and education policy. And one of the things we would do is always benchmark different education systems and high-performing, low-performing systems. DC as an education jurisdiction has one of the highest expenditures per student and one of the lowest outcomes nationally. Like Massachusetts and California are way better, but even as a whole, US taken as a whole ranks only in the mid-20s in terms of education systems worldwide on international assessments. So always the East Asian countries are the tigers that outperform everybody.
You feel like the education system-wise in Washington DC and in China, like especially in Beijing, has a lot of similarities, right? But I think that's only for like elite class in the US.
Exactly.
Right?
Apples to apples.
But in China, I think the
whole system.
Right?
The whole system is very different.
I think in China, it's like the public norm is you have to strive for the best in education for kids.
That's very different.
But I think in US, it depends on like where you are in terms of your social status.
Absolutely. Right? So China, because by and large, there's still a very strong tradition of Confucian thinking that valued education. Like you're talking about thousands of years where it was not only valuing education, it was a meritocratic system where anybody could sit for the Imperial Civil Service exam.
Right.
And the only way you succeeded was through a lot of study.
Right.
And your family made a lot of sacrifice for you to be able to sit that exam.
And we have a long history in that as well.
And I think that East Asian cultures have that. I mean, Northeast Asian. So you have the same type of culture in Japan and Korea of really valuing education and teachers. The position of teachers is very high in society.
Right.
Whereas in America, the conventional wisdom is if you can't do, teach. Maybe only university professors have respect. People look at teachers like
public school teachers and
nannies. And teachers, they have a notoriously high attrition rate. We experienced this and we were at the #1 public school in DC. That is a very exclusive, sort of in DuPont, very small catchment area. Everybody is from like, high income families. And there was such a turnover of teachers.
Wow.
They just leave the profession, right? You have the same thing happening in Germany because Michael, my husband's parents were both school teachers. So they see this in the new generation. First of all, US is not as homogenous as China. In China, yes, it's 52 minorities, but that's 5%.
Right, true.
Right? It's much more of a monoculture. In the US, you have not only class differences, but many different communities and so, for example, in parts of DC, and this is not my opinion, this is just
The fact.
NPR, you can look it up. Unfortunately, there are communities where the kids who are growing up know more adult males who have been to prison than to college. And of course, these are role models. And sometimes if they're studying, the other kids tease them for being too nerdy or like, oh, their street credibility is diminished. And then you have in the same city, Sidwell Friends, where Obama's daughters went, where there's 20 seats per intake, right?
I think a lot of Chinese families who lived in DC, they are strike for like the Sidwell schools. And then
of course,
it's both like you have to be academically outstanding as well as you have like extra curriculums. You have to be good at
athletics. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but going back to your question about the differences. So there are some similarities as, I would also say generally, I feel like as somebody who travels a lot, 90 plus countries, and in the last 5 years, traveling more than 200 days per year, there's just a lot more sameness everywhere because of globalization, because of global hipster culture. You have the same retail, the same sort of business models. All cityscapes start to look the same. The architectural styles start to look the same. The food offerings start to look the same because it's globalized.
But the cultures are different. Like
less different than they used to be. So I think US and China have a lot more in common now, and it depends on which segment of society you look at. What I didn't like about the US was this corporate, rat race of just the materialistic thinking, of excessive consumerism, of everybody really killing themselves for work so that they could have a huge McMansion house and like a 4-car garage and
and then taking a lot of debt.
Taking on a lot of debt, missing their kids' childhoods, and then saving it all for like retirement when then at that point you're too old to really enjoy things. I know I have super successful friends who make 7 figures, but they see their kids literally like once a week.
But you know what? Like based on what you say, I think that's exactly what's happening in China.
Exactly. Now here, I was shocked to see that, okay, you have the jiuzhou culture.
Yeah.
You have the both parents sort of dual income, like women also having a lot of emphasis on their career. You have outsourcing to the IE. You have for childcare or kids staying after school and their schedule is so full. You have more and more consumerism, unfortunately. But the difference is the Chinese, I think, are good savers and not overspending. But I hope that doesn't change.
But I think that's for my grandparents and parents' generation. I think when you look at like millennials or even Gen Zs, I think they have a very different
spending to saving philosophy.
Spending behavior. Yes. Interesting. You mentioned about you have a daughter.
Yes.
So in which systems, if you would
that's
choose...
That's a great question. The thing is, that's why...
You want her to grow up, and why?
Exactly. So first of all, my husband and I are both not religious. And one of the reasons I don't believe in religion is because I don't feel like there's a single way, a single truth, right? I like to have a basket of truth where you select and cherry pick what you like. I like this from Greek philosophy, from Stoicism. I like this one from Zen Buddhism. I like the art and architecture from Catholicism or whatever, but not being dogmatic about there's only one single truth. Okay. And I think the same goes with you when you look at cultures, because the concept of modern nation states is quite recent comparatively, right?
Right.
So the People's Republic of China since 1949, the United States of America since 1776, Germany as a federal republic compared to the longer German heritage. If you go back to Prussia or if you go way back to like the Visigoth tribes, Germanic tribes, where do you draw the line of where that culture evolved? So it's really hard to stay within one border. And again, someone living in 6 different countries and traveling to 90 countries, I really see myself as I know this is very cliche to say, but a transnational global citizen. And that's what I hope to transmit to Layli is this global citizenship, but taking good influence where you find it. And I feel like Chinese culture has a wealth to offer, both in its ancient iterations of like 3,000 to 5,000 years, from Kongzi,
Like
Confucius. Yes, I still think a lot of
Taoism.
stuff from Taoism, Confucius, I was recently, as you see in Shaolin Temple, are tenets I really hold dear and I believe in. I mean, they're just so, it's like it was written yesterday. You can't believe it was so ancient. And a lot of the more modern ways of thinking. I love Chinese strategic sort of planning for the future.
You mean the government?
The government's approach to policy making and long-term planning. And I think the government is very responsive to needs and the zeitgeist and very forward and future thinking. And I really appreciate that coming from Iran, where the government, I don't want to get into politics, but it's not like that. Or in America, where it's a
Constant
circus right now.
debating.
It's a circus. Yeah, it's awful. So there are definitely things. And then there are things about American culture that I do value. Americans are very, very kind, generous, friendly. There are some very positive aspects of the culture. Welcoming, because they're an immigrant nation.
So to my understanding, you wanted your daughter to be a world of citizen instead of like rooted in one place, but at the same time, kind of absorb all the good nutritions from different cultures.
Country vitamins, different country vitamins.
Different country vitamins, yes.
Yeah. But just to say that the only flip side, there's always a trade-off, is not being rooted. Being a global homeless. Like we have no idea. We have no idea what comes next. Like when we talk with Michael, one of our favorite games is to play. It's like, oh, where would we retire? Like where would we actually end up?
Then how do you define home?
That's exactly the best question. I have no idea. Home for me is family, really, first and foremost. Because friends, I've noticed that in, again, modern life where we don't live in one society, we do have a lot of mobility. Even in China, I see everybody comes from a different city.
Right.
My favorite question is "Ni lai zhe nar?" You know, because like there's some Lao Beijing, but like everyone's from somewhere else, and then they move.
Right.
So I come from a country. You have to come in basically countries that experience conflict will always have a bigger rate of emigration.
Right.
Whether it's war or economic or even reasons that people immigrated to the US, to Australia, you'll see it was because of hardships usually and seeking better opportunity.
Right.
So my whole generation, there's nobody left in Tehran. You know, like my whole like adolescence, like there's maybe one person left. They've all scattered to the four winds around the world. And because of moving from city to city, from each place you have a social circle, you build up your social life, but it's transient. Out of every 10 friends, 2 I would keep that continue. So that transience has taught me that the only ones that I can really rely on who will stay is family. And even that for me has been a very amorphous, nebulous concept because my own family, my parents ended their marriage after 30 years and they're still on very good terms, but they, you know, I wasn't like a childhood divorce situation. I was 30 when it happened. So it was quite a shock. My brother lives in New York. I live in Beijing. Michael's family lives in Germany. Like we, as a family, we're all split. So again, it's down to like the 3 of us, like we're a little island.
But deeply connected.
Deeply connected, but then you're going to have empty nest syndrome. So like I joke with Layli that my dream school for her is Oxford. I always joked to her that I'm going to stalk you at Oxford. I'm going to be like, you'll be, you know, walking down the hall and I'll just pop out from behind a tree, or you'll be at the pub and I'll come from the newspaper. I can't be away from you. I just joke that, but I don't know what things will happen.
What do you most hope she inherits from you? And what are you afraid of she will repeat from your life?
Oh, that's a good question. Inherit from me, maybe just, that's a good question. Love of learning, lifelong learning, curiosity, adventurism, exploration, this sort of open-mindedness, yes, the global-mindedness, etc. So, love of language. I hope to try forcing her to try.
But she's already learning 4 languages.
Yes, she is. But to love it, to love the process, not to feel things I don't want her to do is I just want her to be more resilient than me. More grit, more resilience, more independence. Because I feel like I give up too easily. Maybe my bounce back after setbacks is not as strong as I would want. And maybe I have more codependency. And probably it's a result of having moved around so much and having sort of lost so many things, you know, like my country, my parents' marriage. I lost a sister to cancer. That was really sort of unexpected and sudden. So those things have always shaken my concept of stability. So I would want her to have a more strong foundation of stability and resilience.
I think every mom wants their daughter to have a strong heart, strong, big heart.
Yes.
Let me shift the angle a little bit more. So living in China, and what is the hardest part that you have to adjust yourself?
I would say one of the hardest things was trying to have local friends. And I have 2 Chinese friends after 18 months. So not for lack of trying, I've tried, but it always seemed to be a barrier. And Chinese families I found were just less open to play dates. Because the kids are so scheduled with chess, violin, all the extracurriculars, and don't value play as much. I really would like to have more local friends. But maybe I just haven't had also the opportunity. That's why I wanted to also, looking for work, go into a local instead of going back to working remotely with the Gulf. But I would love to work here where I have 同学. And maybe that way then I could actually immerse fully in an adult environment.
What about medical system?
Oh, amazing. Although again, I don't know, I can't speak for the general difference of system-wide, but I'm comparing apples to apples, which is my social circle and the insurance that they have with the equivalent here. And I have 3 recent examples to give you from the US, Germany, and China. So in US, right before we moved, I had a specialist issue where I wanted a pediatric GI, I guess, right? Layla had norovirus and she was hospitalized. So I wanted to do a check because she had been throwing up for and I had World Bank insurance, which was Aetna, one of the top PPO. I did a search of looking up like the top clinics in the DMV area, not just Washington, but Maryland and Virginia.
Right.
Called all of them. The soonest available they would give me was 3 months later. And I said, my child was hospitalized.
In entire DMV?
Yeah, in all entire DMV. And with a top insurance provider. I said, my child was hospitalized. The ER doctor has recommended that she has this test, okay? And we're moving to China, so we don't have time. I really want to do this now. So that's one thing. The second thing is from a month ago. My friend whose husband works at Mercedes, so they have a really great insurance, Mercedes Group Daimler. They moved back to whatever city's Mercedes, near Stuttgart. So she was actually looking also for gastro whatever thing, but for adult. She just was updating us how her move is going to Germany, settling in. And she said, they gave me an appointment for April, end of April.
Next year?
Yeah. Here, any specialist, like you can get same day appointments at any of the sort of expat hospitals like Raffles, Beijing, Family United, Oasis, or even Peking Union, the international section, same day. And even with the national section, with probably 7 days notice, and you book it on the app, boop, 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 boop. And these are top specialists in their field and very amazing facilities.
Wow, good to know.
One of my friends also had a thing, of course, in the ER system, they do a triage system.
Right.
Where, you know, if someone's bleeding their guts out, they'll go first and somebody says, my kid is like vomiting. They're like, okay, wait. But that wait time again, comparing to UAE also was like here. Any ER issue I had, 5 minutes. Here, thankfully, I haven't had the ER, but I've had friends who go to the ER and they just get in 5 minutes. I've had friends. Myself, I took Lady when she had norovirus, 7 hours we waited in the ER. And one of my friends recently, their kid was in a bad state. And 12 hours. They were sitting in the ER and finally they went home. They got tired after 12 hours. Okay, maybe it was not life-threatening, but still, you're going to the ER, you're paying premium insurance. Right. This friend of mine pays out-of-pocket private insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield, $4,000 a month. And she has to wait 12 hours in the ER.
Wow. Okay.
So
Last question for today is so now it feels like there's like a lot of trend with nationalism, de-globalization. So the question is, what do you think is the causes of this?
So I think, first of all, there's cycles of peace and conflict. Like economic cycles, there's political cycles, and there's these macro trends, right? So the 20th century, for example, was when you had a lot of revolutions from the Russian Revolution, Cuban Revolution, China, you have a lot of Iranian Revolution, all of these, and you had a lot of countries becoming independent or fully formed the nation states, and multilateral institutions post-World War II, like the League of Nations, came the UN and all the UN agencies and the World Bank and the European Union, the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. You have these massive blocks. Now you have ASEAN and the BRICS banks. These are multilateral, huge alliances and stuff. And yes, global trade, opening of borders, mass tourism. These are monumental shifts. Right? Now, that world order also, in terms of like U.S. dominance and homogeny, really started obviously in 1945, so we're not even 100 years yet, right?
Yeah.
And then we could say it continued really until now, until recently. It's hard to like say, okay, it was exactly 2020 or 2019.
It feels like it's like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years. So you basically had the shift of balance of power, bipolar system disintegrated with the fall of the Soviet Union and this and that.
Right.
And then you had a period of, undisputed U.S. dominance with the, neoliberal world order. And that, I feel like, is being really challenged because of, first of all, I think it's just not sustainable because it's very unilateral. And we don't live, I don't think, in a unilateral world. We live in a world that wants multilateral, multipolar, and maybe more fair sort of equity and balance and development. And you have huge challenges that, like climate crisis, that you only can work as a planet. You had the agriculture revolution, industrial revolution, the telecom ICT revolution, and then now you have AI. So that's massively going to be disrupting everything. And lots of balance of power issues are going to be disrupted because of also global capital flows, right? So all of these forces, there's just multiple forces that are converging into I think, maybe a time of disruption and disequilibrium, and then it shakes up, and then you always find a new equilibrium.
But do you think the economic takeoff of China is a major factor?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a lot of countries afraid of China's economy taking off, afraid of China is going to be the next unilateral power in the world.
I think it's not going to be unilateral. I think it will be a balance of multipolar. The question for me is, how would China behave? And what would that look like? And I think the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. And if you look at how China has behaved for centuries and thousands of years, has been extremely peaceful, has been only expansionist in 2 dynasties, which were both non-Han.
Right. Yuan
and Qing, I think.
Right.
So it's Mongol and Manchu that they expanded westward. Other than that, it was always much more east, the core of the heartland, and not expansion. It's very peaceful, very friendly. And then even in the more recent history, the last 40 years of transformation, and especially the last 20 years, has been through the Belt and Road and through a lot of investment in economic cooperation.
Right.
Not military wars, conflicts, dominance, colonialism, installing regimes and interference, political interference, none of that. That's a really good history. That's positive.
I think it's because of the cultural attributes. I mean, the deep Chinese philosophy, the Confucianism.
Yeah, I think it's very Zen.
Zen, yes. Last quote. Any words or anything that you wanted to say to someone who is considering moving to China or experience China?
come, come, learn Chinese, immerse. Do not even think about not learning Chinese, because that is a gift of China to humanity, is the Chinese language. And with it comes the beautiful Chinese culture. I feel like language is the gateway to culture. You will miss out on a lot if you don't really embrace that. It goes into your soul.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. I think that's it.
Wow. Well, we'll see what this turns out, because I feel like it's kind of all over the place. I'm not sure what the point of it is. Who's the audience?
There's like a 4 stage of life.
Okay.
The first stage is 看山是山,看水是水. Meaning, you see mountain, you think, okay, it's a mountain. You see water, you say, okay, this is water.
Sure.
Oh, this is like an actual thing. When you first come to the world.
Yes.
Like infant, you see actual things. The second level is 看山不是山,看水不是水. It's like, you are in this reality. You are doubting. You're being skeptical, yes. You're trying to understand the underlying guidelines or rules of this world, and you're trying to change yourself to adapt to the society or the outside environment. So that's why it says 看山不是山. You see mountain, but it's not a mountain. Maybe it's not. You see water, maybe it's water, maybe it's not. I don't know. You're doubting, right? You're trying to figure it out. I think
I'm in that stage.
After you enter into the society, you become skeptical. You receive a lot of information. You kind of like doubt, which one is true? What is my perspective? So this is the second stage. The third stage is 看山仍是山,看水仍是水. It's like when you see a lot of things. The mountain is still the mountain. The water is still the water. It's like you have to experience so much.
Yeah.
And your life experience, you have accumulated to a certain level. And then you are coming back to your true self. You're not going to change yourself because you want to fit into the society or because of any external forces, right? You kind of knowing.
You see it and then you return to your core values, but it's more validated and consolidated.
And then you see yourself. Wait, did I explain it right?
Yes, it does. That sounds, it's like a full circle.